Hey, what's up everybody? It's Travis from Simple C10 and I'm super excited today because we're going to install a bunch of new parts onto this LS motor. So all the parts that I mentioned today, I'm going to do step-by-step tutorials on how to install them on your engine. We're going to start with the Speed Engineering headers from AZ Pro Performance. It's part of their LS swap kit. Then we're going to move to the Holley Valley cover and then the Holley Valve Covers that have the ignition coil cover with the cool Chevrolet script on top. We're going to install the spark plugs, spark plug wires, and we're going to get a really good glimpse of what this engine's going to look like when we're done. Hey, just a reminder, all the parts that I mentioned in this video are going to be linked in the description. So all you have to do is click the title of the video. It's going to drop down and you're going to see different affiliate links there. You can also check out simpleC10.co. It's the new website. It's got parts, merch, do-it-yourself tutorials, affiliate links, air ride guides, build profiles, a ton of information to help you build your truck. So I hope it's helpful to you. So check it out, simpleC10.co. Enough of me, let's hop into the video. Let's learn how to install some of these parts, make your engine look awesome. All right, these Dirty Dingo LS mounts are pretty easy. They just bolt in with these 4 bolts into the block. And as you can see, there's a lot of different adjustment places. We've got 4 different adjustments that we can make on the block to either position it forward or backward. After you get these installed, the first thing, take one of these 5/16 taps and go through all your holes just to make sure they're cleaned out. I couldn't even get one of the bolts started to use a thread cleaner. So just go ahead and get a tap all these holes. That way if you have to adjust anything in the truck, they're already tapped. You're not having to pull the motor and tap them. Go ahead, that'll clean everything out. So on the hole adjustment, the more forward you mount the engine bracket, the further the engine goes back. We had to switch out the engine perch that is in the back hole. We had to switch it with one that goes in the front hole, which is a different style bracket. It usually comes on the 292 trucks, but that will also help us move the engine forward. So clean all these out first, then we'll put the engine mount on there. If you're running a factory valve cover, then you could really use any one of these and it'll tuck in where the firewall is. But since we have those tall valve covers, we need as much clearance as we can. Couple things to be thinking about though. Whatever your front drive system is, that's gonna be a factor. I've got the Holley mid mount, so that sticks out 6 inches from the block. So I've gotta account for that. So I'm gonna install these, we're gonna drop the engine in there, and I'm gonna measure from here to the radiator to see if I have enough clearance. It's gonna be a tight fit, but I like it to be compact and everything to have clearance. So let's go ahead and bolt these in. All right, so the first try to get this motor in, it's set too far back, so we put the Dirty Dingo mounts forward, actually backward to scoot the engine forward, but it still wasn't enough. So we had to switch out this engine perch. Normally it was right here for the V8, and we got the 292 engine perches and mounted those to the front, and then that made everything clear nicely. The Dirty Dingo mounts aren't all the way forward. They're 1 hole back, as you see right here. And that gave us plenty of clearance for the tall valve covers on there. So if you plan on running tall valve covers, plan on either going aftermarket with this engine perch, or you can just get the ones that we did here and bolt them up into the front hole. One more time, just for clarity, we replaced the small block Chevy mount that mounted to the back two holes with the inline 6 to 292 bracket that bolts to the front two holes, and then moved our Dirty Dingo bracket, our engine mount, to the second hole from the front. And by doing that, that placed our engine exactly where it needed to be to clear the tall Holley valve covers. If you're running factory valve covers, then you don't have to worry about this. You can mount it further back, but we needed that clearance. Up next are these sweet Speed Engineering headers. These are from AZ Pro Performance. They come with the gaskets that you need, all the hardware, and these are specifically for the LS swap. So these are going to clear your frame, they're going to mount up, they look great on the truck, and they're an easy install. It's going to allow you to run your exhaust down the frame rail. They're going to tuck up, so if you're bagged, you're not going to drag the ground. They're a great budget-friendly header for those with LS swaps, and especially those that are bagged. Installing the headers are going to be super straightforward. All you have to do is grab the gaskets. There's only one way to put the gaskets on, which is really good. I love when it's set up like that, so you can't do it wrong. Just put the gasket on the header first, slide you a bolt in so you can line everything up, and then we're just going to put the header up to the engine, get a couple bolts started, and then we're going to tighten them down. You'll notice that I make two passes with the torque wrench. The first pass is going to be 11 foot-pounds of torque and then 18 foot-pounds of torque. You want to start from the inside and work your way to the outside to get a good seal. Up next, we've got the Holley LS Valley cover, and what this does is kind of fills in the middle section of your motor to make it look nice. On a factory motor, your valley cover has two knock sensors. We are not using knock sensors on this build, but if you want to keep your knock sensors, then you would go with a different valley cover. So to match the black valley cover, I also bought some ARP bolts. Both of these items are going to be listed in the description, so check that out. But let's see how this looks. It's going to match the rest of kind of the orange and black theme that I have going on. But really simple. It doesn't come with the gasket and it doesn't come with the bolts. So a lot of Holley's parts are made to reuse your factory parts. So whenever you go to install these, make sure to get some matching bolts and get a gasket for the valley cover. Whenever you get ready to torque these down, you're going to torque them to 18 foot-pounds of torque. As you can see in the video, I'm kind of zigzagging through the valley cover. That's kind of the torque sequence that I followed, and everything seemed to work well. One of the things that I'm most excited about is the Holley LS two-piece valve cover set. So these are great if you want that retro style engine, clean up your engine bay. These two-piece set do great about hiding your ignition coils and all the wiring. These work with the LS1, LS2, LS3, LS6, LS7, and retains all the factory hardware. So these will use your factory bolts, factory gasket. So if those are still in good shape, then you don't have to buy those. I went ahead and bought some new bolts and a new gasket set. That way I can make sure everything looks good. And then something you have to buy in addition to that is ignition coils. If you're currently running the truck style ignition coils, they're too tall to fit under the top piece of the valve cover. So you'll need to buy these, that way everything bolts up. These are Gen 1. I'll have a link in the description, and I'll also show you the instructions later on of what style to buy that will work. Here on the instructions, it's going to show you the 1st gen LS style and the 5th gen LS coil style that will work with this kit. You're also going to get the hardware with the rubber bushings. You're going to get the little spacers that go underneath your ignition coils that will space them out from the top. For both Gen 1 and Gen 5, you'll get the billet oil cap, all the hardware to bolt the ignition coils to the actual valve cover. Quick tip whenever you're putting on these gaskets, what I like to do is start with the 3 little rounded spots on the bottom. Go ahead and push down the gasket there and then work the gasket around the outside. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky. Sometimes the gasket seems like it's a little too large for the valve cover. That's very normal. So just work it in, keep pressing it in until you get a good fit, and then we're going to go on to putting in the hardware into the actual valve cover. All you're going to do to install this hardware on there, the bolt comes with a rubber gasket. If you've got new bolts, this is going to be super easy. You just push it in until you kind of feel it click in. If you're using old bolts and gaskets, you're going to want to make sure those are very clean. Just use soap and water to clean those. Don't use any type of cleaner that's going to hurt the rubber seal. These valve covers are only going to work with 1st and 5th generation ignition coils because of the height. Any other ignition coils are going to be too tall for the valve covers and they're not going to fit. As you can see here, pictured are the Generation 1 style, and they worked great. They fit under the cap with no clearance issues whatsoever. Now we're going to install the oil cap, and we'll go ahead and begin to install the ignition coils. Installing the ignition coils is pretty straightforward. You're just going to use the supplied spacers for whatever ignition coil that you have. The ignition coils are only going to bolt into the valve covers one certain way. So as you can see in the video here, I'm kind of lining up the holes to see which way that they fit best. Then I'm going to put the spacers underneath the coils and then just bolt them into place. All we're going to do now is use the supplied hardware with the rubber washers on there to hold down the top. So we're just going to put the top down, screw in those 4 bolts, just get them hand tight, then we'll install our spark plugs and our spark plug wires to finish up this build. One thing that I did want to mention is, as you can see, the oil cap. Anytime you go to put oil in the truck, you will have to remove the valve cover top and then also the ignition coil that's blocking the oil fill. So that's one inconvenient thing about this, but sometimes that's the things that we have to give up for a cool look like these valve covers give us. Last but not least is the spark plugs and the spark plug wires. So I'm running the AC Delco. You can see the part number here. I'll also have those linked in the description. The last thing we'll need are some spark plug wires. These are 10-inch wires with the 45-degree plug on both ends. These are going to work well to plug into the valve cover and then to the spark plug and be able to clear the exhaust. It's hard to get a torque wrench down in here to the spark plugs, but all you need to do is use a socket and a ratchet and just get them hand tight where they feel snug but not enough to where you would break them. On the spark plugs here, you can see that I'm twisting them around, plugging them into the spark plugs, just trying to see what kind of angle that I want them to be at to stay away from the exhaust. I mess around with it a little bit and then I figure out the top ones can be angled toward the back and then the bottom ones kind of go from a straight up angle, and that gives us this nice little curvature that keeps us away from the exhaust and gives it a nice uniform look. I just want to give you a little glimpse of the clearance for the spark plugs. You can tell I can get my hand in between them. Here's kind of the angle from the top view of the spark plugs.